Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Silver Silk and More channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'm excited about today's project that I get to teach you. I'm coming back at you with another fantastic bracelet design called Sunset Whispers. This particular name, which I love, was inspired by the colors of the pipe chain that I'm going to be using today. A few things that we're going to learn is one, I'm going to teach you how easy it is to string through pipe chain using beading wire. I'm going to teach you how to attach a button closure just for a whole different look and feel to your bracelet. And finally, I'm going to teach you how to embellish the raw ends of the beading wire once we get to that step, because that is just the most fun and exciting part when you can add even more pizzazz, even more embellishments to your design. If you enjoy the content on this channel and want to see more, I need you to do a few things for me. First is give this video a giant thumbs up and make sure you share it with your creative friends out there and let them know that Silver Silk exists and tell them about our fantastic products. You can also subscribe to the channel, which is important for YouTube to know that this channel is important and it keeps me coming back at you with even more tutorials and inspiration. Um, and with that, I think we're ready to get started. So why don't I show you today's project? In fact, let me pan over to the photo, and I'm just going to drop this down to my work table. There we go. And I want to show you guys the list of things that we're going to be using today, starting with the tools. So first we have our cutters, which are these right here. I'm going to be using these to cut the beading wire, and you can also use them to cut pipe chain, of course. And Lindstrom is a very reputable, very great brand. I've had these forever, and I highly recommend them. They're a little bit pricey, but you definitely want to invest in your tools as you get better and better with jewelry making. The reason for that is that you're making a long-term investment with your supplies and pliers and whatever you have in your stash. That stuff is not going to be replaced, within the week. It's going to last you for the next 10 years. Chain nose pliers, which I've got right here. Wubbers is a really great brand. I recommend them because they're economic for the most part, but they're also very strong tools and very well made. So I would highly recommend checking out that company. I've got some crimp pliers from Zuron. Now, funny thing is that none of my pliers are from the same company, but it took me a while to really research, use, and get comfortable with the tools that I use today. And the thing is, they don't have to match and look aesthetically pleasing. Now, I am all for matching tools, but when you have done jewelry making as long as I have, you realize that there are just specific tools for specific needs. And sometimes that just comes from different brands, and that's perfectly okay. Xuron is another great company. I particularly enjoy their crimpers the most. They've got a very nice tapered end here, and there are 3 different channels that you can crimp with. And it comes with that little V-shaped notch that you use in the beginning of your crimping process first. This is one style of crimping which gives you a folded crimp. Now, you can also use a pair of magical pliers, crimping pliers that look like this. And these just have a singular notch. I will say, from the gathered opinions of my friends and colleagues and customers out there, these can be a little bit difficult to use, but there are plenty of tutorials, especially from one of my favorite companies, Softflex Company, that show you how to use these pliers. And they make it pretty easy, from years of experience and just how they use it on camera. But I think with these, it just requires practice, just much like any other technique out there. And you just get better and better at crimping and making the perfect rounded crimp. So those are the basic tools that you'll need. And then let's talk about our materials. I had mentioned Sunset Whispers being inspired by the pipe chain, which looks like this. This is a warm gold color that has been knitted over a bright orange silicone tubing. The tube hole is about a millimeter, maybe a millimeter and a half, give or take. Probably closer to a milliliter, actually, as I'm looking at it. But it allows for beading wire, raft wire up to 20, maybe even 18 gauge to pass through pretty easily. You can even put leather cord through it that's around a millimeter in size and just, fish that right through. And so it's a great chain that you can fill it with and manipulate however you wish. I've done quite a few projects where I've made sculpted earrings out of these. I've made sculpted bracelets and cuffs. Um, and these just make for a wonderful, simplistic looking bracelet that you can finish out quite easily. And today, in fact, we're going to be using beading wire, which I'll show you here in a minute. Um, you can use SilverSilk Pipe Chain end caps. I'm actually not going to use any for this design, though. Normally, I'd have them sitting out, but I'm just going to go ahead and skim right over that. In this case, we're going to be covering it up with beads at the ends, and so it just gives you another design option. We will need crimp tubes, though. So here I've got 3 Softflex crimp tubes in gold color, which matches the wire color that's on the pipe chain. And you do need 3 specifically. I know that's such a weird number, but we're going to be using a couple for the tassel finish at the end, and then 1 to crimp that little button that goes on it for the clasp. So I have 3 of those out. And by the way, I do love their crimps. They're seamless, tarnish resistance, and they've got a thick wall, so it really holds that beading wire quite well post crimping. And then speaking of beading wire, I've got medium soft flex beading wire and antique brass. This project is quite open-ended. I will say you can use pretty much any color that you want to, and they've got quite the color library of beading wires. I'm going to be using antique brass just because I had it out, but you can, of course, use orange. You can use yellow, whatever's in your stash. Turquoise is a quite lovely finish with this. Gold. And so, something to think about is always mixing up the colors. I highly recommend the medium size. It's going to be nice and robust, and their beading wire in general is quite flexible, but you do want to watch the 49 strands to make it as flexible as possible. And the diameter size is 0.019, just in case you're curious. What else have we got? We've got an heirloom button, which looks like this. Which, by the way, the button and the beads are from Jesse James Beads, and I was able to dive into their latest bead box, which is called Stay Golden, and use some of the materials that they've included in that monthly bead box. And they've got a really cool vibe this time around. It's 70s music festival inspired, and they've got really great vintage components. And so, of course, my eye was drawn immediately to the buttons. I think here I could show you another one, in fact. Isn't that cool? So you could really go crazy with this and make a bunch of them with all kinds of different vintage buttons that you've got. This one's roughly about 3/4 of an inch to an inch in size. The only thing that you're going to watch out for is how many beads you need for the loop that you make for the button closure to fully work. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter for the size of the button. The other thing that you might want to consider is that this is a pretty thin bracelet overall, because it's only really just the pipe chain, that's going around your wrist. So just think about ratio. And so the larger the button goes, the more awkward and heavy it becomes. So I personally, from a designer standpoint, and this can all be nixed if you don't want to take the advice, perfectly fine with me, but I would just stay under the inch to 3/4 area for the button size, just to, again, make it nice and balanced overall. Let's see, we have got some metal spacer beads. These will be used for making our loop. And these are roughly about 3 to 4 millimeters in size, as you can see. And if you're going with this size, then you'll need about 14. You can use seed beads. Size 8 seed beads work amazing. Really, it is just measuring to fit around the button. And I've discovered that with 4 millimeter size beads, about 14 will get you through. Let's see, 2 knotted cord beads. That's what these are. These are quite small, as you can see, but I'm going to be using these as embellishment around the pipe chain instead of using the typical pipe chain end caps. These also came with the Jesse James Bead's Magical Mystery Box, and I just loved it because it, added another texture to my design. So have a couple of those. And if you don't have those, then by all means use the end caps. They're perfect for it. You'll also need some sort of yellow tassels and additional charms and beads for embellishing. I fell in love with this little guy. I think I'm going to name him either Sandra or Pete. I don't know. We'll see by the end of the show what I'm what I'm feeling. But kind of fun, isn't it? I love that turquoise finish, patina finish on the copper, and then this like really dazzling faceted rondelle bead. And it's not really rondelle, I suppose. It's more of a coin shape, but it's got a beautiful, shiny polish to it. So you can see that all of my materials are kind of contrasting each other, and I think that just adds to the funness of this bracelet design. Alrighty. Oh, you will also need, this is important. Now, this might seem like a small bead, but it's going to play a very heavy part in the whole design, believe it or not. And you'll need 4 of these rondelles. They're listed at the very end of the list here, 3 millimeters, maybe even 4 millimeter size beads in faceted rondelle. And you'll need 4 of them specifically. You'll see why as we construct this together, but those are very important. Everything else you can kind of, mess around on, but those beads you will definitely need. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to swipe this photo away. Normally, I'd have like a set of instructions with pictures, but I did not do that this time around. This bracelet's quite easy to put together. And so we're just going to wing it. All right, I'm going to grab my beading wire and I'm going to go ahead and clip 15 inches of that. The reason for having the extra beading wire is that you will need it for doubling up. So here I go. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off here. And the next step is to string your beading wire with your gold beads. Okay, so remember we needed 14 of the 4 millimeter size beads. And if you're using seed beads, I want to make a guess and say that you'll need about 20, but it really depends on the size of your button. Okay, so we're just going to string these right on. These are hollow on the inside, so it's a little tricky to get them to come through, but we're going to make it happen. There we go. Okay. Got a few more here. This is probably the most tedious part of the whole thing, which it went by quick, thank goodness. Sometimes I'm just like eager to finish the project as we all are for that instant gratification part. All right, the thing you want to do is after you strung the beads, and we will actually also go ahead and string one of our fiber cord beads here as well. It's just to check and see that this is going to pass through the button. So let me grab the button here. Looks like it's going to work, so that's great. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and string both beading wires through the pipe chain. Okay, just insert it in and just hit go. And it strings right through quite easily. The thing that you want to be aware of as well, which I forgot to mention, is the size of your bracelet. Typically, these sorts of bracelets tend to be about 7 to 8 inches in length, but I would recommend as you're constructing this to just use your wrist and best judgment to cut away as you need and see fit. And it looks like this one's going to fit me pretty well. And I believe this is right around the 7 to 7.5 inch mark. Don't forget to add a little extra because of the clasp. All right. So now I'm going to string the second fiber cord bead, and that's what's going to cover my raw end here very handsomely. See, so whenever you've got like larger whole beads and they kind of stay fit, I might even drop a little bit of Loctite glue in there just to keep it super secure and not sliding down. But I kind of like clever ways of hiding the beading wire and the pipe chain raw ends. All right, to both beads and to both beading wires, I'm gonna go ahead and string that through my rondelle beads here. These are the ones that were super important because they're the ones that's gonna hold your button. I will say it's a little bit of a tight squeeze with both beading wires, but what I think I'm gonna do is also cut this at an angle, and sometimes that helps to get it through. Yep, there we go. Okay, once you've got both beading wires on, I'm gonna go ahead and slip on my button and see how that just allows the button to sit comfortably and swivel around as it needs to. So now at this point, I'll go ahead and string on the other two beads here if they'll cooperate. There we go. And we've got one more. Just barely fit through. Not much breathing room, and that's okay. We want this to be a pretty good, solid, tight fit, right? Okay, go ahead and string all the way through. Now you can see still swivels, still good. And I'm going to go ahead and crimp the end of my wire here. What I'll do is I'll just double check everything. So I want to make sure that everything is nice and pulled down toward the loop. And after I've determined that, I can go back in with my crimp pliers, take it into that last V-shaped notch, and just press down. The wires might automatically separate into two different segments or channels. And then the idea is just to press that little crescent shape together as such. Okay, now that is nice and crimped. What I also like to do is just go back and give it another small squish just to be on the safe side. And at this point, we're ready to embellish. So what I'm going to do is grab a bead, and then I think I'm going to do a crimp tube, and we'll just string on our tassel on one end and loop it back through the crimp. You can do whatever you want to here. There's no set rules or style for making your design. I'm going to leave a pretty generous sized loop there for the tassel to freely move around as it wishes, but just adds a little movement to your bracelet, a little bit of extra color, and keeps it nice and fun. Okay, I'm going to string on my next bead, maybe a little gold spacer to continue that gold color. And I'm going to string on a crimp. And you know what? I think the owl's a Sandy. I'm going to call the owl Sandy. Okay. Looks like my crimp wants to go through the little spacer bead, but I'll try my best to keep it out of the way. But you can use your chain nose pliers or crimp pliers to string back through the crimp. There we go. And go ahead and crimp it in place whenever you've got it nice and held in spot there. Okay, I kind of like that it covers it up actually because it just adds a nice decorative feel to it. But that's it. So now you can test your bracelet simply by just stringing that through, and you are on the go and ready to wear this out the door. Isn't that awesome? Super easy, makes a great gift, if especially if you're looking to do this in like 10 minutes or so. And we all have those gift emergencies, trust me. So I highly recommend trying this design out with the pipe chain. It's so much fun, so easy to do. And we'll take a quick look at the photo one more time. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching this tutorial. I hope you take away a new technique or style that you can try at home with your own materials, and that you'll give pipe chain a chance and craft with it. You can pick up these supplies from silversilkonline.com, and I'll encourage you to check out the Jesse James Beads page on the top menu as well for the custom creations, which is where the supplies came from for today's project. Otherwise, you could check me out on Instagram and definitely follow my channel over on YouTube. And again, give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy it. Leave a comment if you've got a question or just want to share how much you enjoyed this tutorial. And I guess I will see you guys next time here again. Take care, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.